I'd like to call to order the Charter Township of Chesterfield regular township board meeting for Tuesday, February 11th, 2025 at 7 p.m. to order. Could we all please stand, face the flag, and recite the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Clerk Berry, would you call the roll?
Supervisor Kersten.
Here.
Treasurer Elliott.
Here.
Trustee Anderson.
Here.
Trustee Joseph.
Here.
Trustee Hornberger.
Here.
Trustee Vosberg.
Here.
Clerk Berry is here. Supervisor Kersten. I'm sorry, I already called you. Go ahead.
Yep. Item 4, approval of agenda. Item 4A, Clerk Berry. Is there a motion to approve the agenda as presented?
Motion to approve the agenda as presented.
Support.
Support.
Treasurer Elliott. Discussion. Clerk Berry, call the roll.
Clerk Berry, aye. Treasurer Elliott.
Aye.
Trustee Anderson.
Aye.
Trustee Joseph. Aye. Trustee Hornberger. Aye. Trustee Vosberg. Aye. Supervisor Kersten.
Aye. Item 5, we have a presentation tonight. 5A, presentate, Clerk Berry.
5A is a presentation from Adam Wright from Midwest Strategy Group.
Good evening. It's good to be here tonight. Adam Wright with Midwest Strategy Group. We're a government relations firm in Lansing and proud to represent Chesterfield Township in Lansing. Wanted to start off by giving you a small recap of lame duck, the lame duck session. It was crazy, it's wild, and it was some that never happened. So the Senate went on for 30 hours, which was a record Senate session that we hadn't seen since many years prior to that. And the House of Representatives, unfortunately, in their last 2 days of session, couldn't achieve a quorum. And so their last 2 days of session, they did absolutely nothing. The House Republicans that were the minority at that time wanted to see changes enacted to the paid time and sick leave bill that's going into they wanted action on that because those new provisions go into effect on February 21st. The previous Speaker of the House wouldn't take up those bills to make those changes, and so House Republicans boycotted going to session, and there was also a House Democrat that boycotted going to session, and there was not a quorum for them to be able to conduct business. And so they adjourned for the year, and nothing further happened in the House of Representatives. Some things that did pass that you will be interested to know about, House Bill 6058, which makes changes to hard cap 80/20 provisions. That's something that impacts most local governments. While that did pass the House and the Senate, when they finished their time in the House of Representatives, they never transmitted the bill to the governor. And when the new speaker took over, there were 9 bills left over, this being one of them. The speaker said, I'm not going to send this on to the governor for her consideration. They've had a legal review of it. He doesn't believe that he has a responsibility, or can he go back and transmit something to the governor that was an action of the previous legislature. So the Senate Majority Leader has sued the House of Representatives to compel him to present those to the governor. So we expect on this bill and the other 8 bills that are in limbo that there'll be quite a court battle that will take place, and we probably won't see action on this for some months, potentially, for the rest of the term. Another bill that did pass, so that was beneficial for local government, is a program called Ground Emergency Medical Transportation for local governments that provide any sort of ambulance service or ground emergency medical transportation, and you provide that to Medicaid patients. There's always a billing that happens, and most of the time, because of Medicaid reimbursement rates, you don't get paid the full amount. So this program, which many other states take advantage of, is a federal program where federal dollars flow through down to the states, and it fills that gap for what local governments don't get paid for. So this is something that Michigan is now going to participate in, and that local governments can participate in if they choose to get that reimbursement for that last portion that Medicaid doesn't pay. In lame duck, one of the things that we were disappointed about that didn't pass was the revenue sharing trust fund. While revenue sharing payments and the amount you'll get was increased in last year's budget, the trust fund wasn't. And this is something that is frustrating to us that represent local government, because this is an opportunity to take revenue sharing, take it off the table for political debate, put it in a trust fund and say, these dollars will always be there for local government, irrespective of who the governor is or who is in the legislature. And I know one of the holdups for this is Governor Whitmer is concerned about the total amount of money that it takes off the balance sheet that the legislature has the ability and the governor's office has the ability to spend. And so that was probably what held it up last term. And now in divided government, I think this is something that Republicans and Democrats can come together in, mostly because in 2 years, all House members and all senators are up for re-election. So this would be something good they could say that they've done. But it passed the House of Representatives last term with 106 votes. So not a controversial thing, something that would be good for all local government. So they'll take another run at that one. Minimum staffing legislation failed, which is good. It didn't get taken up in the House of Representatives. This would have required that every single time you have union negotiations with your fire department, that they would have to discuss minimum staffing levels. Now, right now, it's an option. You can. That's something you can talk about what minimum staffing levels are. But this would say every time you had a contract that you must discuss it. It would be a mandatory subject of collective bargaining. And so, and because our police and fire are under Public Act 312 and binding arbitration, if an arbiter said, you need 12 more firefighters, and you're bound to do that, you have to pay for those 12 firefighters somehow, which means you all have to figure out where in the budget you cut so that you can provide for those 12 firefighters. So it's good that that piece of legislation died so that you can still have those conversations, but you're not forced to do it every time you have a contract renegotiation. Water affordability legislation also died. That's something I know local governments in Macomb County were very adamantly against. It'd be a new $2 fee on every water meter to provide water affordability throughout the state. You all already do that here, and you believed that a new program statewide would have been redundant. So that did fail. I know that the governor mentioned it in her budget presentation, and Democrats in the Senate are looking to try to put these bills up again, but I would be shocked if they weren't dead on arrival in the House if they pass the Senate. Something I've talked to you about before, video franchise fee legislation. Those are dollars that every local government gets for companies to be able to use the road right away. And they wanted to change the definition of what video franchise would be. And so you would, most of the platforms now, a lot of people have cut the cord and they stream now. And so you would see some of these larger companies move from more of a hardwired system to a streaming platform, and that would immediately started declining the revenues that you get from video franchise fees and PEG fees. That bill made it to the Senate, and we actually killed that in the Senate to make sure that it didn't see the light of day. Now, we've had conversations that there'll probably need to be a modernization of it because revenues continue to decline because of a lot of cord cutting, but at least this bill didn't speed up that process to drain the revenues that you currently get. And finally, a fix to the paid leave and minimum wage. While that's going to go into effect on February 21st, they failed to do that in lame duck. But I'll touch on that in a little bit about how they're handling that moving forward. So House Representatives flipped from Democrat control to Republican control. The top three leaders in the House of Representatives are all from West Michigan. Speaker Matt Hall is from the southwest corner of the state, more like Kalamazoo, Calhoun County area. Speaker Pro Tem Rochelle Schmidt is from Allegan County, and the Majority Floor Leader Brian Postumus is from Kent County. The Minority Leader Ranjiv Puri is from Southeast Michigan. On the House Appropriations Committee, all the folks from the Appropriations Committee leadership are from Southeast Michigan. Appropriations Chair Ann Bolin, Appropriations Vice Chair Matt Maddock, and the Minority Vice Chair on Appropriations is Albus Farhat. Your state representatives, Jay DeBoer and Alicia St. Germain. Representative St. Germain will be the Vice Chair of Natural Resources and Tourism. She'll sit on Economic Competitiveness, the Education Committee, and Health Policy. Representative DeBoer will sit on Oversight. He'll actually chair that committee, and I'll talk about that track in a moment. He'll sit on Economic Competitiveness and Judiciary. So Jay DeBoer will chair Oversight. This is a new track for House members to serve on. Typically, legislators will be assigned a policy track or an appropriations track. And now they've added a third track, which is oversight. The Speaker and the majority Republicans believe it's important to have oversight on the governor's departments and looking at how they operate. For any of you, and I know we've dealt with a lot of issues with Eagle and various departments, and so oversight is sorely needed in certain areas of the state government. And so this oversight committee will play a vital role. Now, in the House rules, when they established this committee, they gave oversight the power of subpoena. So it's Representative DeBoer's hope that he never has to use the subpoena power, but he will if needed. If there's not cooperation from state departments, he will have the ability to subpoena folks to come in to testify before the committee. There's no local government and municipal finance committee this term. Most issues will go to the finance committee, and that will be chaired by Representative Mark Tisdale, who represents Rochester Hills area. Some of the priority legislation that's happening so far in the House of Representatives is affixed to the paid leave and minimum wage law that will go into effect on February 21st. The biggest issues that could hit local government are that, and businesses quite frankly, are that there's a provision in the law that will go into effect that a staff person could not show up to work, not call for 3 days, and there can be absolutely no disciplinary action taken against that employee whatsoever. It's hard to operate a local government, it's hard to operate a business, it's hard to operate almost anything if you can have people that just don't show up for 3 days straight without calling or talking to you about what's going on. That's one of the problems with the law. The other problem is this paid leave portion applies to part-time seasonal staff. And so, and it in some instances can apply to independent contractors. And so there's a lot of ambiguity about how that would work, but having to provide paid time off to seasonal staff, especially in your parks, could be an expensive endeavor and hard to actually operate. So I know the House version fixes those two items. The Senate version they're taking up this week. It's not as robust as the House, but in order to come to a solution, they'll have to work together. Actually, on my way here, there was a breaking news report that the governor's weighed in and said that she would sign a bipartisan deal. Her office wasn't necessarily specific about what provisions she would sign, but she has weighed in and said if they can come to a bipartisan agreement between the House and the Senate, she would sign it. In the Senate, what they've been focusing on, Senate Bills 1 and 2, have to do with expanding the Freedom of Information Act to the legislature and the governor's office. This is something they've tried to do for several terms in a row, and it's never passed. The new Speaker of the House is on record saying he doesn't plan to hold a vote on those Senate bills. And some of the other things that have been happening in Lansing and kind of what's next is there was a consensus revenue estimating conference recently. We have 2 of those every single year, one in January and one in May. And that's when the nonpartisan economists from the House Fiscal and Senate Fiscal Agency come together with folks from the State Budget Office to determine what the revenues are going to be for the state of Michigan for the year. So it's their estimate of what they think and how much money they think we will have to spend. the initial estimate showed that between the general fund and the school aid fund, that there'll be almost an additional $1 billion to spend. And they'll redo those numbers and reclassify all of that in May when they have their second one. So they do the consensus revenue estimating conference, and the governor then does her budget presentation and says how she wants to spend all that money plus the almost extra $1 billion. And that happened on February 5th. And that kind of kicks off the appropriations process, and the House and Senate Appropriations Committees will now start meeting to determine when they believe, or to determine what their versions of the budgets will look like. One thing to point out with the budget process this year is that it's normally a goal to get the budget done by the end of June. School districts and some local governments have a different fiscal year than the state of Michigan. So they tried to get the budget done so they, local schools and local governments would know what their actual budget would be for the year. It's more likely than not that the budget will be completed by September 30th, which is the constitutional deadline to get the budget done. So unless they're able to make a deal to do the school budget early or to do budgets for local governments early, expect that this process will play out and be much longer than in the past. It looks like they want to take their time and really dig into a lot of the budgets, and so expect that to go through September 30th. The governor will be giving her State of the State address on February 26th. So we will watch for that to see what her roadmap is going to be and what she wants to accomplish for the year. As part of that, she recently announced her plan for the roads. The Speaker and House Republicans have put out a roads plan which focuses a lot on making reductions and cutting and investing dollars into the roads. The governor, in her plan, wants to cut the sales tax on gasoline and raise the gas tax by an equal amount, because the sales tax on gasoline doesn't all go into the roads. It goes to the sales tax fund and gets distributed to schools, local governments, and whatnot. The biggest thing that we're looking at for local governments is, as those formulas are changed, we want to make sure that if you get more money for your roads, that's great. We just want to make sure that it's not taken out on the back end through revenue sharing. We want to make sure your revenue sharing stays exactly where it is and continues to grow, because the cost to operate and do business continues to grow, and that you get additional funds for roads. And so that's one of the things that I know the governor has said in her plan she wants to do, is change the Public Act 51 formula slightly so that more dollars go to local road agencies and less dollars go directly to MDOT. So that is that's the update of what's going on in Lansing. We expect more robust committee activity to start in the next few days. I did get word today that House session canceled for tomorrow and Thursday because we're supposed to get some snow, and this kid from West Michigan just laughs at 4 inches of snow, so I don't know what we're so worried about. But I think it's supposed to be a little more robust snow in other parts of the state, though. So happy to take any questions.
I'll open it to the board. Any questions? Any questions? None? Thank you very much, Adam. Appreciate it.
Absolutely. Good to see you all.
Yep. Move on to item 6, department reports. I'm going to go Treasurer Elliott. Am I in the way, or Karen?
Thank you, Mr. Supervisor. Just a small presentation on the investment report, and are you able to bring the slides up? Oh, okay. So the first page here is just shows you the concentration of the investments. We have 26 million in investments currently, and those are broken up in several different banks and investment firms. And then this next slide will show you that this is broken up by fund, and it shows you that the general fund has 12 million, and the water and sewer is 8. Public safety has 4 million. The healthcare had 1 million, and trust and agency had 268,000. That is, this was at the end of the year. and those numbers do change as we do tax collection, and that begins to hit in January. Those have all increased. Well, public safety for sure has increased, and the general fund as well. And then the final slide is going to be on your interest income. And this one here shows you how much income the township has earned on those investments in 2023 and 2024. And it breaks it down per fund. So the total amount that was earned was $2.5 million in 2024. And we earned in the general fund $659,000, in public safety $674,000, water and sewer $611,000. The capital projects fund earned a little over $500,000. Brandenburg $3,000, and healthcare fund earned $67,000, and Parks and Rec $10,000. Thank you.
Thank you. Trustee Anderson?
Thank you. A few of the items covered at our February 3rd Public Safety Committee meeting. Both the several applicants' background are in progress for both the checks for both the police and fire. Both the police and fire departments are reviewing their websites. Our recently hired officer is on the payroll. Part-time firefighter has been promoted to full-time. The department itself, the police station, is various states of completion as far as the renovations. The annual police week May of activity at the police station. Hopefully everything will be ready for the public to be there at that time. If there are any issues as far as completion of that building or anything that might be safety concerns, they may postpone it until September. They will let everyone know ahead of time what the appropriate date will be. Thank you.
Trustee Joseph?
Thank you, Mr. Supervisor. Just a couple of things to add from our Public Safety Committee meeting on the 5th. The Fire Department accreditation process is continuing, and they are preparing for the next stage in the timeline, which in essence begins the official clock. That's an 18-month process. The difficulty with that is making sure that you kind of got all the ducks in a row, and then engaging in the notification of accreditation. The police public safety team also working on their capital improvement plans for the years 2026 through 2031. Going back to Supervisor, when you were running things over there, you had a tendency to be very tight with the budget, and we were buying things on an emergency basis. And I think over the last maybe 5 years, we've begun to really look long range at capital improvements. So it was something that Director Bassett is spearheading. Lastly, the fire truck that was replaced, the ladder truck, was sold, and was happy to report that the old ladder truck went to a town in Pennsylvania. The uniqueness of, I'm not going to try to pronounce it because I'll butcher it, but their fire department is completely self-funded from basically fundraising. It's an all-volunteer department, and the $100,000 that they paid for our ladder truck represented a pretty significant portion of their entire budget. They immediately had it on their township Facebook page, or their town Facebook page, and it was kind of nice to see the Chesterfield logo. They were using it to take down the town Christmas decorations. So we're hoping that it serves them well, and happy to sell that. My next report is actually from our Senior Advisory Committee meeting. Our first official meeting took place last night here in this building, and we discussed a number of issues. I was very happy to see we actually had a member of the public that came out and asked a lot of very nice questions and was very engaged. He saw that the Senior Advisory got some attention in the paper and came out to see what it was all about. The election of officers was done, and we have a chair, a vice chair, and a secretary now. Ms. Vanderson, for those of you interested in attending one of those meetings, our Parks and Rec Director, Ms. Vanderson, chairs those meetings and provided the group with updates not only about seniors, but things that would impact seniors as it relates to Parks and Rec. So she touched on a number of those things, including the registration for pavilion rentals, and then a number of events that the Senior Center will be hosting, including the, this would be a good one for you, Trustee Anderson, the sock hop and the stuffed cabbage workshop. I know that you have pretty nice, yes, so you have a nice recipe. Maybe you could attend the workshop and regale them with your culinary skills. The other issue that got a lot of attention and discussion was there was some debate initially when the committee was formed, and there were some senior members who talked about a fund that was created over a period of years through charitable sort of events, bake sales and so forth, with the idea being that at one point maybe in the future we could expand the building or have a much grander sized senior center. That fund kind of stalled at $61,000, and there was never any direction in terms of what it would go towards besides the massive building, which really would have been in the millions. So Ms. Bauer came to one of our meetings and researched this fund. She reported then, and the fund stays at $61,221.36. It is earmarked for senior projects. A list of potential options was presented by Ms. Vanderson, and what we've done at the last several meetings is discuss what purchases the seniors would like to make with that. What we will probably have at the board for our next meeting, because it is a township fund, although earmarked for seniors, is a request of that $61,000 for new tables, card tables, and padded chairs in the amount of $15,000 and $3,000 for a senior dedicated park bench over at Brandenburg. Lastly, the concept of a gazebo slash pergola was discussed, and some of the ideas are things that Supervisor Kersten pointed out that Mr. Sonnenberg had researched on some levels. The hope is Josh, just I know you're not really busy around the township, but the hope was that maybe you could provide the Senior Advisory Committee with some updates on the things that you've, ground that's already been plowed, I guess. You've looked at a number of options for shade and gazebo, and so helping them to drill down on the cost of that is probably our next endeavor. Lastly, and of some concern, and I don't know how these things seem to manifest, but the seniors have been relocated from the senior center over at the township because of the construction. They've acclimated here very well, but unfortunately there continues to be rumors, and our committee really is intent on trying to stop misinformation and provide opportunity for fact to come out. But a few of the commission members reported that for some reason there's continued talk of the clerk's office taking over the senior center, and I'm not sure where that's coming from, but that is, as far as I've been advised, and Supervisor Kersten, correct me if I'm wrong, the senior center is the senior center. It will remain the senior center, and once the development, the reconstruction is completed at the Township Hall, The senior center will be returned to the senior center. They will run whatever programming is sort of split between this facility and the senior center. That seems to be more centered around cards and things like that. The exercise classes that get a lot of participation are probably going to be housed here, but there's been no plans that the board has entertained that involve the senior center, the senior wing of the township hall being anything but designated for seniors. So Clerk Barry, I don't know if that's coming out of your department or, but the frustration and the level of concern was pretty obvious. There was talk of we won't accept that, and we're going to get petitions to sign, and we just said, wait, there's no real need for that. Supervisor, you have direct control over the operations and day-to-day and who goes where and who does what. I haven't heard you say, and you said it again last night, the senior center is the senior center. And we tried to reassure them of that, but very good first meeting, and a lot covered in in the hour and a half. So appreciate the seniors that volunteer their time, and excellent work again, Ms. Vanderson. A lot to keep straight, and I appreciate you chairing our meeting last night. Thank you.
Thank you. Clerk Barry?
Thank you, Mr. Supervisor. I have to share with the board and the public today the audit findings from the post-election audit that was conducted by Macomb County's election department. The township was selected randomly from the state's proprietary Arlo software. That is the security software that they use for auditing purposes. We were one of several communities in Macomb County alone, and dozens around the state that were chosen randomly by that software to participate in the audit. It selects precincts from all jurisdictions to ensure that a broad sample pool and generalized findings to statewide races are able to be completed. And in this case, the scope of the audit was the presidential election, of course. And in Chesterfield Township, Precinct 10 was selected. The county audited the process that occurred on January 30th, 2024 at 8 a.m. The audit lasted approximately 5 hours. And the auditors looked at things such as processes including mandatory notices, public accuracy testing, minutes from the election commission meetings, appointment of inspectors. They looked at our early voting processes. They looked at election day processes. They looked at our absentee ballot processing. They took a look at materials, and those materials were then removed from their sealed containers, compared to the chain of custody documents, which is our poll book, and a manual recount of the presidential election for that precinct was completed. The county's findings noted that there were no discrepancies at all between the reported outcome and the hand recount. And moreover, all of our security procedures were followed correctly. The election department there was only one item that they brought up to us, and it was the matter of one of the certificates in the container. There's a certain sleeve inside one of those front containers that had been taped in. The tape came loose and it fell inside the bag as opposed to being inside the plastic window. So that was the only thing that they found that was problematic, but it was obviously easily remedied and explained, so not a problem there. Audits are routine, and they are required by state law after every election, and they are actually critical to our election security and safety and accuracy as well. So the post-election process itself is quite exhaustive. It's equivalent to the annual comprehensive financial audit and report that the township undergoes every year to ensure our financial compliance. This is that equivalent for election compliance. At the end of the day, the county concluded that if there were to be a score out of 100, that Chesterfield Township would have received 97 out of 100 points. So very pleased with the results of that audit, very similar to our audit results that we had in August as well, after we had the post-election audit at that time. We were not chosen for a post-election audit for the presidential primary, but for the general and the primary we were. But again, both both stellar audits. I'm very pleased to report that to the board. With regards to the clerk's office and its location, as far as we are aware, we are just awaiting the completion of our space. And myself and the supervisor have been talking about, the logistics of making that transition and working with Josh on that. So I'll leave any timeline up to the supervisor. We're in a holding pattern at this time. Thank you.
Thank you. Couple of department head reports. Michelle?
Thank you. Good evening. Welcome to the Community Center. One of the highlights is that we're able to host meetings like this, among many others, so we are happy to have you here. Stop by any day of the week and you'll see the building filled with activities, including senior fitness programming, art classes, special needs programming, or community groups that have found the Community Center to be their home for monthly meetings. We have plenty of those. During the weekends, you'll find youth basketball, several rooms that are rented for parties that we're able to offer year-round as well. I encourage you all to tour around the building, around the space, check out our new office area as we expand ourselves into the full building. If anyone in the public as well is interested in a tour of the space, feel free to give us a call in the Parks and Rec office and we'll be able to walk you around, schedule some one-on-one time for you to really explain the space and what we have. Last week in our department, we opened up for the 2025 season for rentals. Those park facilities included party rentals at Brandenburg Park, as well as soccer and baseball fields at Pollard. With our 8 a.m. opening time, this year we had a resident set a record for the earliest in line for the 8 a.m. opening. He got here at 2:30, so the imaginary trophy goes to him this year, and he was able to book the date and facility that he was looking for at Brandenburg. In the week since, we've added on to online registration as well as non-resident registration. Plenty more have filled out. A couple dates are filled, but we still have plenty more available for the summer season. We expect that once we get past the snow season, we'll see a lot more people thinking spring and thinking summer and book for their groups as well. Our official summer season for rentals is from Memorial Day weekend through Labor Day weekend, with the splash pad operation going 11 a.m. to 7 p.m., weather permitting, of course. We've also heard that these are more popular than that season can hold, and so we're expanding as much as we can. So you'll also see Saturdays through the fall season, heading right up until Thanksgiving, are also available for rental this year. If you are interested in renting, you can do so online or in person. Online is parks.chesterfieldtwp.org. In-person registration is here at the community center, and that can be for the Shoreline Clubhouse or any of the 4 open-air pavilions that we have. Pollard Park field reservations are also available for anyone in the community that is interested in using those facilities. From April through October, we have 4 soccer fields and 5 baseball diamonds that are available. Several local organizations have already put in their interest for the 2025 season, but again, plenty of space and plenty of room to be able to share with that. This year, I'll also notice several local baseball tournaments and softball tournaments being held at Pollard. It's getting on the map as a place to be, and so we're having a lot of organizations come and show interest in that. Our youth baseball league that we host starts in the spring. Registration is available right now. That's for ages 5 through 13, co-ed, and it's an 8-week league. Children play twice a week for each age group. We look forward to the spring season, but we also enjoy the winter season. You'll see in the gym next door, we have pickleball. The indoor players come out this time of year. So thank you very much.
Thank you. Ms. Bauer?
Hello, this is just a quick update from the Finance Department on what we're working on. We're working on our year-end close. The team is diligently working to finalize the year-end financials. This process ensures accurate reporting and prepares us for the upcoming audit. Annual audit preparation. The external audit is scheduled to begin mid-April. Finance is completing necessary documentation and reconciling accounts to facilitate a smooth and efficient audit process. Our timesheet software implementation. We are in the process of setting up new timesheet software. Initial setup and testing are underway, with full implementation expected by the end of this year. The system will enhance our payroll efficiency. Lastly, we are also putting an emphasis on our ACH payment expansion. Accounts payable and payroll are actively increasing the use of ACH payments for the township transactions. This initiative aims to enhance security, reduce processing times, and ensure safer money transfers. Thank you.
Good evening. I just wanted to provide everybody with a quick update on some of our projects and some of the issues that we've been dealing with. So this first slide, we're going to talk real quick about it. At our last board meeting on January 28th, there were some concerns about air quality that were brought up in our, we'll call it our former youth center. I just want to make sure the public knows that there's no youth activities going. Although we address this building as a youth center, there's no activities going. It's just a cold storage or heated storage building for miscellaneous materials as we're doing our construction project. So there were some concerns brought up. We went in, we shut down the building the next morning. We had testing done the day after that. We had a company called Performance come in, which is a real well-known air quality environmental testing company. They do work all over the state and some of the country. They came out and they did took a series of air samples. They took 4 air samples at the building, and then they do what's called the surface pull test. And then after those tests at the youth center, we actually, if you'll flip to the next slide, Karen, we went over to the senior center, the temporary clerk's department, and tested the boxes that were pulled out of that building and also did another air quality test there just to make sure if there was some suspect material, it didn't get transferred into our building. So if you'll pull to the next slide, Karen, those results came back normal. Every facility has a little bit of mold in the air. It's standard, but if you look at there was a 30-page report that we sent out to the board with all the details, and feel free to take a deeper dive, and if anybody has any questions, I'll be happy to address them. But I'm just trying to give you the overview. It came back completely normal. In fact, there was 0 fungal spores observed on the boxes at the clerk's department and in the air quality test that we did at that location. So we should be all clean. We opened that building up for temporary storage. Unfortunately, that building is a little older. We brought the roof back in October 23 to do that roof at that time because we had concerns about it, and that was shot down. So we would like to bring that back. Even though we don't use that building, it's always nice to keep those things as tight as possible so we don't get any water infiltration. There is remnants from long before I was here of leaks that were done in several areas of that building, but since we've been here, we've had no issues. Those leaks were in storage closet from 8 or 10 years ago. So I'll be happy to answer any further questions about that. Next slide, Karen. This is our police exterior renovation. This was also from the last board meeting photo. This is a site photo from January 28th. You can see there was our new pad transformer, and behind that building was the last section. We had to wait till DTE abandoned that area before we could start working on that building. Karen, if you'll go to the next slide. This slide shows that we're putting our new fluid applied membrane, which is a way that we seal the block, and you'll see the new steel that went up the cross in the middle of the wall. To the right, you can see that blue panel and a little bit more detailed steel that was put up. That's the next step. That detailed steel is actually the framing materials for the panel steel. That'll work its way across that fluid applied membrane along with a 2-inch rigid insulation. That will finish that section of the building. So we're looking forward to wrapping up this section. We're working on it now. Next slide, Karen. Also at the police station, we were putting in our overhead door canopies. You'll see several of these going around the building where the man doors are, where you go to walk out, just to provide a little protection from the weather. We're also putting in our overhead doors. I didn't take a picture of that, but that'll be ongoing all this week. They're trying to do 1 door a day because we don't want to get it too cold in the garage because we got fire suppression. Next cold. This was something we talked about at our last meeting, just to give everybody an update. We talked about closing over at the municipal offices for phase 2, closing some of the entryways. This was today, so we checked the first box. We got some of the old VAV boxes, which are almost like small residential furnaces, down out of the ceiling. Just want to remind everybody that Tuesday, February 18th, we will be closing both those entrance doors as we put in those walk-off mats that we talked about in the last meeting. Next slide, Karen. This is a picture of our phase 2. Last time when I was here, they just hung the drywall. Now we have the drywall taped, primed, and we're moving into the next phase. Next slide, Karen. This is your old boardroom. Today, the last couple of days, the demo has started in that room. So as you can see, the board dais has been removed. They're in the process now of removing the old panel walls and some of the material. And you'll notice in this slide, when you look at those glass windows, that lower portion, we had a leak there. And I'm sure anybody that's been in that room has seen the drywall has been missing for quite a while. And that's been an issue since I've been here. That flower bed's got so filled up, it's almost brought up to the top of the window frame. If you'll go to the next slide, Karen. So this is a picture from the outside. That, over the years, they've built and built and built that flower bed till it's almost to the base of the window. So as we've talked about just today, we actually tore that entire bed out. Just so that we'll never have that problem again. That was our goal. It was just a bad design. And in the meantime, there was an old anchor up front. If you go to the next slide, Karen, you can see that wood portion of the anchor is called stock. And if you look at that picture on the right, you can see how that's degraded over the years. That metal used to be tightly bound to that wood. Well, over the years, it's just decayed. So that thing's about ready to break down. So for safety reasons, we're pulling it out and away, and we'll have some discussions whether we bring it back, but we have to replace that stock and do some wood to it, or do some work to it. The other issue is in the anchor, the bottom has some points. So if we put it at grade level, I would just be worried about a kid playing on it. So I just want to make the board aware it's going away for now, and we'll have to have some discussions whether we bring it back. Next slide, Karen. I'd also like to thank Mr. Joe Ballard. He came out personally and helped us move our generator from the inside of the building. One of the things we talked about in some of our previous meetings, getting that from the inside to the outside. So now we have relocated at the outside, and we're in the process of hooking it up. So I'd like to thank Mr. Ballard and his team. And also, I'm sure some of you have seen we're doing some work at Brandenburg. We are pulling out some of the old playscapes with the intent of putting those playscapes in. We're trying to do a good job with updating our Facebook and streaming pages so people know that, social media, so people know what we're doing to show that we're not tearing apart all the playscapes. We're not removing the old ADA one. We're just resurfacing it and putting some new playscapes in. So we're looking forward to that. That's actually going to start up in April. So that's it. That's all I have. Do you have any questions?
Thank you. Question?
Comment and a question, Josh. At the last board meeting, we had some discussion, actually two board members. One was talking about being in the youth center and overcome with, the fumes and the things and coughing, and that she had to escort the employee outside. Nothing like that was found in terms of the air quality from the testing.
That was the basis for our testing, and correct, once the test was done, there was no, there's obviously a smell in that building. It's an older building, and especially when you keep a building like
closed.
That sealed,
Yeah.
hasn't been open for a while, you'll get a smell like that, especially being an old gymnasium.
Sure.
And some of the materials that were used have a lot of formaldehyde in them, which you get a little bit of smell from that too. But yeah, there was no, the testing shows that there was no concern when it comes to air quality.
And then we also had reports that some of the boxes were moldy. Did you find any of that?
So what they did to that point is they went around and did a surface test, which is really just you take a piece of Scotch tape, you put it on the surface, you pull it, you put it in a Petri dish, you see what grows. There was no, the boxes that were removed and brought back to the clerk's temporary department, we actually took the lids off, and we didn't use the top boxes. We went down like 2 boxes, so we weren't picking up any material from the air. It would be something that was brought over from the building, and there was no fungal growth on those boxes.
Well, I remember getting an email the very next morning, so Wednesday morning after the board meeting. Ms. Yenna indicated that because of the comments and the discussion, that it was prudent to shut the building down and test the quality. Seems like a lot, but better to be safe than sorry. What did that cost us? What was the cost of the air quality and mold testing and all of that?
So typically what would happen is you'd go through it would be a contractor that would hire it out, but because we have some experience with this in my past life, we went right to the performance.
Yeah.
And it actually was right around $1,000 or less. So it wasn't terrible, but if the initial test would have brought back anything, that's when you would go more in depth. So that was the first phase. So we didn't oversell the testing. We did exactly what was required in multiple areas. We spaced out the testing all around the building, and then even took a control sample on the outside of the building so you could see interior versus exterior over at that building.
Well, certainly our employees are worth it, but maybe if we could watch the hyperbole, we could maybe spare some expense until we have real evidence of a problem. and certainly not something that maybe we should be talking about at a board meeting until it's brought to your attention to, investigate it. You do have experience in this area, and so I appreciate the caution, and I think it was well done. Thanks.
Thank you.
Trustee Vosberg.
Thank you, Mr. Supervisor. I have two issues. Thank you for following up on that, because I think it's very important. Sometimes we're in environments where it doesn't feel and smell right, and it wasn't, but thankfully it wasn't a dangerous situation. So thank you for that. Another thing about my second question is about the entries. The front entries are going to, you said, will be closed, but will the rear entries doors be available for public?
Great question. So it'll just be the main entrance on Tuesday, and then the entrance when you come in from the back by the generator. So if you go to the other side of the building, those other doors where if you walk in by the senior center, front and back, those doors will be open. We'll have signage posted, because I know with the weather, we don't want people to get in and have to walk up and down. So we'll have signs posted at two of those entrances directing people to the other two doors on the other side.
And the signs will be at the sidewalk before they even get out of
Yes,
their cars,
yes.
so they will. Great, thank you.
Yes. You're welcome.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Item 7, public comments on agenda items only. There's a 3-minute time limit. Again, public comments on agenda items only, 3-minute time limit. Mic is open. If you would please state your name for the record. Not required, but just helps keep track. Mic is open.
This isn't an agenda item, but I wondered if Treasurer Elliott, when you went through the interest made on the bond funds or all the funds, I couldn't see the board that well with all the numbers, and I didn't hear you that well, but it sounded like you made approximately 2.6 mil on 26 million. Is that correct?
Your discretion if you want to answer it, or do you want to keep going? And we'll
26 million
I
is,
just wondered
26,
if-
I'll address it. 26 million is the balance in the account at the end of the year. But the amount changes that's in the bank account or in the investment accounts throughout the year. So 2.6 would be how much you earned on the whole year and all of the funds. So sometimes it's higher, sometimes it's lower.
Okay, so the balance during the year could have been higher. Is that what you're saying?
Oh, yeah, it fluctuates depending, yes.
Okay, so I was wondering, it's almost 10%, and T-bills and CDs and everything are paying about 4.5%, and I just wondered how you came up to almost 10% on that. But it's because you had a higher balance sometime during the year, is what you're saying.
And there's compounding interest on things, and there are times when, yes, the balances are higher, and, the interest earning upon interest. Does that make sense?
I guess.
Yeah, okay,
Thank you.
you're welcome.
John Speaka, Chesterfield Township. I do have a question for Treasurer Elliott in regards to the investment report that she presented. With the numbers, and I'm working with exact numbers here, not estimates based on what is in the packet. At $26,538,096.56, our return on interest that we received was $2,569,025.20, according to what you put out there. Again, just to follow on what Mr. Cade had said, I haven't seen a 9.68 return, and I can't tell you how long. So, if you could explain how we got to that, because I find that hard to believe. And then the second part is Robinson Capital with $2,514,097.68. There was no mention of the return on investment on that actual dollar amount that we gave Robinson Capital. So there's no chart that shows the return on investment on it. And with a little bit of research, Robinson Capital is an investment firm in Grosse Pointe. So my question is Chesterfield paying Robinson Capital a broker's fee for this investment service? So I didn't hear that answered. And then just to follow up on what Adam said with Midwest, I appreciate the update from Lansing. Always good to hear, what's going on in Lansing. But in regards to the law to where an individual, if they're MIA for 3 days, that same law, in my opinion, should apply for an elected official that's MIA for 3 days. So I think it works both ways. So, and I'd like to see something on the books for that. And then in response to, on the agenda item, I do have a question regarding agenda item 6, or E, $17,578. When I looked it up, it's a subscription fee for 2 years. So, I mean, that's a hell of a subscription fee. So if you could expand upon that, the way I understood it, I think it's a huge waste of taxpayer dollars if I read it correctly. So if you could expand on that, I would appreciate it. But most my concern is our return on investment and how it was presented to the residents. So if you can answer that, I would appreciate it. And then in regards to the hyperbole that was mentioned by a trustee, I don't think it's ever hyperbole when people think that their lives are at risk and that there's a danger in the air. So I want to thank Josh for going in and taking a sample of the air. But I also want to thank the employees that came forward with their concerns. So,
Time's up, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, I didn't expect to come up and talk to you about this, but since it was discussed, my name is Abigail Youngie. I'm a Camp Lejeune kid. And when I hear about formaldehyde in your buildings and while one person got sick, that would ordinarily be me. Take it seriously. You know, this is a carcinogen that you're not going to be able to undo what it does to people. You know, some of these things, and whether it be our water or our air, end up staying in our bones and can take 30 to 50 years to get it removed. Please take that seriously. And if it cost $1,000, you have no idea what that just saved you. Do the real investment. Find out what needs to be pulled from that building before it kills people. And we'll just watch our neighbors get sick. And if you guys haven't, we should be putting across things to filter our water because it is not safe. We don't even have the minimum standards set up for the PFAS and 15 other things that are in our water every single day. These are things we can do something about. This affects our generations, and it's going to take 50 years to get all the service lines repaired and replaced. Think about how many generations your family members will be around for that. And that's when we'll finally get clean water. Thank you very much. And needless to say, I came for Lou and the wonderful special needs fishing outing that happens every year. Thank you so much for allowing that to take place. It touches people not just in Chesterfield, but all around a 3 to 5 county thing that people come out every year for. And it seems like we fight for the approval. We don't want to fight. We just want to be able to attend and use and have access to the water, because I tell you, it really is a privilege, and most people don't get it. Thank you so much.
Any further comments from the public? Any further comments? Item 8, the consent agenda. Clerk Berry.
All items under the consent agenda are considered routine by the board and will be enacted in one motion. There is no separate discussion of these items. If discussion of any item is required by a board member, it will be removed from the consent agenda and considered separately. A, approval of the minutes of the regular board meeting of January 28th, 2025. B, approval of the payment of bills as submitted by the Finance Department. C, receive and file Quarterly Treasurer's Report as of the fourth quarter ending December 31st, 2024. D, approve a request by Public Services to pay invoice number 2025-10111 from Miss Dig in the amount of $6,753.91 for Miss Dig 811 services in 2025. E, approve a request by Public Services to pay invoice number 250289R from UIS in the amount of $17,578 for SCADA maintenance services for 2 years from 2025 through 2026.
Is there a motion to approve the consent agenda as read?
Motion to approve the consent agenda as presented.
Support.
Motion by Clerk Berry, supported by Trustee Vosberg. I'm looking at the light, that's all. Discussion? A motion by Clerk Berry, supported by Trustee Vosberg to approve the consent agenda. Clerk Berry.
Clerk Berry, aye. Trustee Vosberg.
Aye.
Trustee Anderson.
Aye.
Trustee Joseph. Aye. Trustee Hornberger. Aye. Treasurer Elliott.
Aye.
Supervisor Kersten.
Aye. Item 9, public hearings. There are no public hearings scheduled tonight. Item 10, the regular agenda. Item 10A.
Item 10A is to approve a special event request by Life Handicapped Outdoors to approve use of the park and waive the Shoreline Clubhouse building rental fees and security deposit for organizers at Brandenburg Park on Saturday, June 21st, 2025.
Support.
Motion by Trustee Joseph, supported by Treasurer Elliott. Michelle, I'm sorry. Ms. Vanderson, please go ahead.
Thank you. This request comes from Life Handicap Outdoors. This is their 32nd annual event, and we happily welcome them back. They have followed all park rules and have added a feature to the park. Lou Kaloya is here this evening, and I believe wanted to say a couple words about his event.
Have a photo album here of the 32 years I've been doing the fish outing for kids with special needs. It's all about your park. It's beautiful. If you have a second to take a look at it, you will appreciate this. This is beautiful. I've been doing the fish outing for 32 years, and I'm asking if I can continue to do it. I need the building in case it rains. If it's sunny and beautiful and nice out, I could have as many as 500 people. If it's raining, 50 people, but that's when I need the building. These articles in the newspaper, this one is the Macomb Daily. That one is from the Michigan Catholic. I've received lots and lots and lots of coverage in the newspapers throughout the years I've been doing it. Television, Channel 2, Channel 4. And I really appreciate your time and everything. And thank you for everything. Thank you especially.
Any questions? You want to stand there and take some questions?
Sure, of course, sir.
Trustee Joseph?
Yeah, I was just wondering, I noticed that your associate that came with you mentioned the fight, and as long as I've been on the board, and I think Trustee Anderson and I were kind of in agreement, I think any time that your organization has come forward, we have been in full support.
Yes,
and,
thank you.
I hope that there's not any resistance or any kind of fight to get here, because we are grateful to you, and we have talked about it collectively over the years, and we think that the least we could do is waive the fees for such a great event. So we want you to know you have no fight here, and in fact you have our full support. So thank you for what you do.
Thank you.
Is there any way that we could kind of get something locked in to where the second or third Saturday is set for him to get the building? You know, we're all special needs right in front of you. It can be, you know, sometimes what seems like intimidation almost, because we don't necessarily know all the steps to go through it. And this man is literally sat outside the front building at 5:30, 6 o'clock in the morning, wanting to be the first one to make sure that nobody tells us no, that we're not gonna have this, you know, certain weekend or whatnot. And, you know, that's where I came into it, and I'm like, stop it, Lou. This is a matter of talking to people and saying, hey, this is such a great event, to see how many people, I mean, we have fishermen that are 65 years old coming out still for this.
The only thing I would ask you is get with Michelle set the date if you want it for 4, 5, 3, 6, 10 years.
Awesome.
Get with her, and I
Absolutely.
think she can communicate directly with us, and we will work with you, as Trustee
Absolutely.
Joseph
I
said.
know a part of
I
it
don't
was-
think there's a board member that's gonna give you a hard time
so
about anything.
appreciate. He was like, Abby, I'm an East Point resident, so that the Chesterfield gets priority, and I'm like, no. I said, I tell you what, if you put this in front of them, I said, how can anybody say no to such a great event that brings, you know, so many people together? The diversity is just, and the inclusion, it's wonderful. You know, because this is what it's supposed to be like. You know, we have to come together as a community and a village and,
Do you plan on being back here next year?
oh, honey, every year.
Well, right off the bat, let's approve it for 2 years.
Thank you so much.
Would that work?
Thank you.
Absolutely.
Yes.
Trustee Bosworth, go ahead.
Thank you.
what are we going, third
And I agree, this is a wonderful event. I've attended before and watched and talked to the people fishing and the excitement of just even sitting there with a pole and hanging onto a pole, whether they caught a fish or not. It was exciting, but many were successful and did catch fish, so it's great. And you have not because you asked not, so I'm glad you asked. Thank you.
We do appreciate that.
Thank you for your
Trustee
time.
Joseph, do you wanna make it 2 years, or are you looking?
And this is the third week?
I was just looking at the date for 2026, and I'd like to amend my motion to include June 21st of 2025 and June 20th of 2026 to waive the fees. Well, the motion will read exactly with the addition of the June 20th, 2026 date.
Thank you so much.
You good with that?
I mean, it's such small stuff, but you know what I mean?
Continued support?
Some folks really have issues with
Absolutely.
forms and filling them out. And people bring that to me every day, all day, and I'm disabled, and I'm just thankful that what I can give, my goodness, yes, I will come to a board meeting. You know what I mean? And to be able to put it in front of you, and this not be something that, you know, he's literally waiting outside at 5 o'clock in the morning, Abby, I gotta get there. I gotta get this date, and it's like, honey, you can relax, we don't have to have a stroke, everybody's gonna be.
All good, sir. Thank
Thank
you.
you so much.
Thank
for
you. I
your
have a
time.
motion by
Truly
Trustee Joseph,
appreciate it.
supported by Treasurer Elliott to approve item 10A with the 2026 date included, June 20th of 2026. Any further discussion? Clerk Berry.
Trustee Joseph.
Aye.
Treasurer Elliott.
Aye.
Trustee Anderson.
Aye.
Trustee Hornberger. Trustee Vosberg.
Aye.
Supervisor Kersten.
Aye.
Clerk Berry, aye.
Item 10B.
Item 10B is approval of a special event application for Dearborn Firefighters Burn Drive Bass Battle on Saturday, July 12th, 2025.
Motion to approve.
Motion by Treasurer Elliott, supported by Trustee Vosberg. Ms. Anderson?
This is another event that's becoming an annual favorite. They've been back for several years now, and this is now, I believe, their third time at Brandenburg Park specifically. Again, we love the event. They do not ask for a pavilion or the building. They just need space near the boat launch, as well as use of the boat launch during their tournament.
Discussion? It's a great group of guys that come from Dearborn and surrounding fire departments that it's a good day for them. They have a good time out there, and they're very respectful, and it's nice to have them traveling from Dearborn, Dearborn Heights, Wixom, Novi. So, great group. Any further discussion? I have a motion by Treasurer Elliott, supported by Trustee Vosberg, to approve item 10B. Clerk Berry?
Treasurer Elliott.
Aye.
Trustee Vosberg.
Aye.
Trustee Anderson.
Aye.
Trustee Joseph.
Aye.
Trustee Hornberger.
Item
Supervisor
10
Kersten.
Aye, I'm sorry.
Clerk Berry, aye.
Item 10C when you're ready.
Item 10C is to authorize Township Attorney to institute circuit court action regarding 41900 Fuller Road, violations of Township zoning ordinance and code of ordinances.
Supervisor Kersten will make a motion to approve. Is there any support? Support. Is that Trustee Joseph? Trustee Joseph. Gentlemen, background?
Yep, we're seeking approval to authorize a township attorney to go into circuit court action against this property. We've had multiple complaints over multiple years by multiple residents. And 10 years ago, we went through the same process with the same property owner. So we'd like to continue to get it cleaned up for the neighbors and clean up the property.
Discussion? Trustee Anderson?
Yes, you also, yeah, you mentioned you do have, and I don't know the identity nor the addresses, you do have complaints from neighbors about this property?
Numerous complaints.
Okay.
We get approximately 1 or 2 a month.
Okay.
But the case has been tied up in court ever since I started 4 years ago. I would write a ticket every year, and the district court judge wouldn't exactly hold her feet to the fire and make her clean it up. He would just fine her and take a guilty plea. So we feel that going to circuit court will help because they have more authority to have the place cleaned up and send crews over there to clean up the mess for her, since she will not do it herself.
And that is the correct address, 4100, right?
41900, I believe.
Okay.
Yeah,
I was
41900.
trying to ride by and take a look at that, and I ran into Brandenburg Road, so I don't know if I made a wrong turn there on Fuller or what. Thank you.
Any further questions? Trustee Vosberg?
Yeah, I think the address, I had the same thing. The address that's in the agenda is 41,000, and that's way too far south. Then I just looked it up on,
It's
different-
It's 49100, sorry.
right, yes.
Yes.
And I did drive
is
by it.
double.
I mean, it's a safety hazard, even vehicles are right up against the road. If somebody needed to pull over or whatever, all kinds of things could happen, so.
Yes.
At this point, it's probably our worst enforcement case.
Oh, yeah. All right, thank you for taking this forward.
Trustee Anderson?
Yes, the correct address was on the agenda, not the agenda, but on the write-up there.
Yeah.
Any further questions? Any further discussion? I have a motion by Supervisor Kersten, supported by Trustee Joseph, to approve item 10C. Clerk Berry?
Supervisor Kersten.
Aye.
Trustee Joseph.
Aye.
Trustee Anderson. Trustee Hornberger. Trustee Vosberg.
Aye.
Treasurer Elliott.
Aye.
Clerk Berry, aye.
Thank you.
Gentlemen. Item 10D.
Item 10D is to approve a recommendation to enter into lease agreements with Enterprise Fleet Management for engineering, parks, and recreation, water and sewer facilities departments per the 2025 capital plan and budget.
Supervisor Kersten will make a motion to approve. Is there any support?
Support.
Trustee Joseph?
Thank you.
Ms. Jenna?
Take the first slide there. This is a little bit of background that we have with our relationship with Enterprise Fleet Management. It just outlines some of the activities that we've done over the past years and how many vehicles we have leased, including public safeties, 2 admin vehicles, and then 19 other vehicles over the other township departments, including assessing, building, code enforcement, parks and rec, and water and sewer. The working relationship between the township has had with Enterprise has helped us update the fleet and tremendously improve safety features within each vehicle by updating the year and all the safety features that are now in those vehicles. Next slide. Enterprise also provides a fuel management system, which is an added bonus to the township. They review information pulled from the vehicle tracking systems, and along with the fuel cards, they help make suggestions on areas to gain savings. Some examples of the savings that we did get based on their suggestion was to decrease idling time and also to change a fuel card provider to get better discounts. The chart that you have in front of you shows what the township fleet was in 2021 before we moved over to the Enterprise relationship. You'll see over these 2 columns, there's 45 vehicles noted, which was our fleet at that time, and the average age of those vehicles was just over 9 years. Next slide. The next slide here shows what the fleet currently sits at. So we now have 40 vehicles, and the average age of those 40 vehicles is just over 5 years. If you approve what is proposed tonight, there's 11 highlights on there. The average age of the vehicle will go to 2.75 year. So significantly improved over the last few years. In this chart too, I'd also like to point out on the bottom of the first column, there's a motor pool in here. We introduced the concept of a motor pool, which is sharing the vehicles, and it was a way for us to decrease the fleet, but still allow flexibility in use of all the vehicles amongst departments that don't carry their own fleet. This option has also been well received by staff as a way to not use their personal vehicles for township business. They can reserve the vehicles in advance or sign it out on a daily basis or when it's needed. Next one. Oh, I'm sorry, there was one more. I'm missing one. I'm sorry, the slide that is missing from the presentation, and that's my error for not getting that one submitted. It is a slide that is in your package. It's the fleet detail of what we are asking for this evening. I can show you what it looks like. I don't know the page number. I'll show you what. It looks like this, the current recommendation, this chart. So in the current recommendation, page 57, thank you. In the current recommendation, you'll see if we start at the bottom and move our way up, the assessing department, code enforcement, and the building department are not slated to get new vehicles at this time as they're in the middle of their 60-month lease period. The departments that will get a typical lease, which is a basic truck or van or SUV, would be the facilities department with one van, the motor pool, parks and rec, and then engineering split with the water and sewer department. Then up at moving up that chart, you'll see the DPS in the water and sewer vehicles. This section here is what we call a self-funded lease. And what we're able to do with these self-funded leases is basically purchase the vehicle, but then because Enterprise is a leasing company, we have to lease it for a year. So that's why you see the big outlay right when we take possession of the vehicle, and then we lease it for 12 months at $98 a month, and then we own it at the end of that for 88 cents, I believe. What we do with this is because Enterprise, we have Enterprise's buying power. So what they do is they are able to get the government discounts and cooperative pricing through their relationships with many dealers. Since they're in the fleet business and the business of buying it, they get a larger discount than the township typically does going directly to the dealership. We compared their base price of $52,000 with a local dealership of that same vehicle, and even with paying some fees to Enterprise, it's still $1,600 cheaper to go with the Enterprise lease program on these self-funded leases. This is the same program that we came to you in May of 2024 for 4 other water department vehicles. The reason that we do this on some of the water department vehicles is because they have upfitting costs, and that's not your typical, Escape or something that just is kind of a turnover vehicle. We upfit them with plows, toolboxes, things of that sort, which cost more money, and we may keep those in for a longer period of time after that 60-month lease. So the impact to the 2025 budget will be approximately $40,000 less than we originally expected. And this is partially due to having the vehicles for a partial year. Even in the best case scenario, if we took possession of these in March, we would have lesser of payments. And then originally we were thinking of getting 6 motor pool vehicles, and we've taken that down to 5. So I'll entertain any questions.
Questions from the board? Trustee Joseph?
Just a request, I guess. Trustee Anderson and I were over at the PD. They, when a vehicle comes into PD service, the back seats are taken out, they're stored, there's some original equipment that needs to stay sort of in the township possession, so that when that vehicle is retired, the original equipment goes back into the vehicle, and then it goes to auction. We don't get a lot, in terms of the value of the vehicle when the PD is done with it. They have to retire, obviously, the vehicle because of the high nature, the likelihood of a high-speed chase and the dependability. We don't have other township departments, pursuing permits at 100 miles an hour or so. I guess the request is, I like what you've done with the leasing program, but I'm wondering if there's a way to take some of these vehicles that are no longer usable for a police function, and we have all of the original equipment that we're putting a lot of effort into preserving. Would those could those find useful life somewhere else in the township for a less intense use? And could we perhaps save a few of those vehicles for some of the other departments? Some of those vehicles have a lot of life left, just not police life. So I'm wondering if maybe in your I know that you're constantly assessing these, and there's a sweet spot when it gets to a certain amount of miles and we sell it and we get new, but maybe incorporating the possibility of using some of those retired police vehicles in your next round of decision-making for, other township departments. Just a suggestion.
Certainly. I'll work with Director Bassett and his teams and see what they're going to decommission and do an analysis on that and bring
Great.
that forward.
Thanks, Ms. Yona.
Thank you.
Clerk Barry?
Thank you, Mr. Supervisor. I really like that idea, Trustee Joseph, and in fact, we, in the elections department during election cycles, those motor pool vehicles were absolute lifesavers for us. Whenever we have a lot more mobility that's required of us now in terms of some of the things that we have to do. So great job. I can't thank you enough for what you did with just instituting that motor pool, because that was so helpful to us. It's become not just a luxury, it's a must-have for us now. We need to have access to various vehicles that have specific characteristics, just in terms of what they can carry, how much they can carry, sizes of things, security and things like that. So I love that idea. We'd be more than happy to consider one for just election purposes, of course. I have to advocate for that. But thank you very much, because that motor pool's become an absolute must-have for us. Thank you.
Thank you. And that's a team effort. That wasn't an idea that I came up with. It's been an idea since I've been here that I've heard, different department heads, a fleet technician talk about instilling that motor pool, because it is helpful for everybody that does need access to a vehicle every once in a while, but can't justify it as a department cost.
Trustee Vosberg?
Thank you, Mr. Supervisor. You don't have to go back to the slides, but you had said the company helps you analyze use of fuel and expenses. Have some of those ideas been taken
Yes.
advantage of?
Two that I noted was they've noticed now that we've pulled all the data in together into one report, that there were some high idling times in some of the vehicles. So we were able to talk to our teams and have them be cognizant of how long vehicles are idling, which obviously saves on fuel. And then we used to be with WEX Speedway account, and then we switched over to WEX ExxonMobil. So there were different discounts that were offered with switching, basically where we fill up with gas. So.
Okay, so it's still WEX, so you still have the features of the WEX account?
Yes, we
just
do.
a different, just going to different fuel station instead?
Correct.
All right. And then, so then back to the use or the idling thing, did you establish a policy, or do you have data since then that you can compare the difference?
I could go back to the reports and see how it's decreased if you'd like. It does depend on times of year too and what jobs our teams are on, because sometimes there is a reason for a vehicle to idle. So I could do some more analysis on that if you'd like.
Okay, thank you.
Any further questions? I have a motion by Supervisor Kersten, supported by Trustee Joseph, to approve item 10D. Clerk Berry?
Supervisor Kersten.
Aye.
Trustee Joseph.
Aye.
Trustee Anderson.
Aye.
Trustee Hornberger. Trustee Vosberg.
Aye.
Treasurer Elliott.
Aye.
Clerk Berry, aye.
Thank you, Ms. Shannon. Item 10E.
Item 10E is to approve a recommendation to rent portable toilets in 6 township parks in 2025 through Cormick Services in an amount not to exceed $15,630.
Is there a motion to approve?
So
Move to
moved.
approve. Oh, support.
Motion by Clerk Berry, supported by Trustee Vosberg. Ms. Shannon?
Thank you. There is a chart attached to this agenda item which shows different rates from 3 different companies as we are increasing the portable restrooms in our park facilities. And basically at the bottom, over those 3 companies, they're all within maybe, $600 of each other. We are recommending going with Cormick Service. They are our current vendor. They've been very responsive whenever we need them out to for an emergency clean. They'll bring additional toilets. And what we noticed with this company, they come in and they fix things that are wrong with the portable toilets. So we are very pleased with their service, and we would like to continue on with them.
Discussion from the board? Any questions? Motion by Clerk Berry, supported by Trustee Vosberg, to approve item 10E. Clerk Berry?
Clerk Berry, aye. Trustee Vosberg.
Aye.
Trustee Anderson.
Aye.
Trustee Joseph.
Aye.
Trustee Hornberger. Treasurer Elliott.
Aye.
Supervisor Kersten.
Aye. Item 10F.
Item 10F is to approve a recommendation by the Township Supervisor to add 60 lights along Gratiot from 23 Mile to 25 Mile with no upfront cost to the township, with an average monthly cost of $1,832.29 before taxes, based on current rates.
So moved.
Trustee Anderson? Or was Joseph? Motion by Trustee Joseph.
Second.
Supported by Trustee Anderson. Was it?
Anderson.
Thank you. Karen?
Good evening, board. So this data was performed by DTE engineers on the amount of the lighting, and we gathered some crash data from our public safety department, and I wanted to share that with each of you. Between 23 Mile and 25 Mile, in 2022, we had 70 crashes. In 2023, we had 106 crashes. In 2024, we had 93 crashes. And then in 2025, we have had 6 crashes so far. So a total of 275 crashes between 23 Mile and 25 Mile on Gratiot. And that's it. Any questions?
Trustee Vosberg?
Thank you. I just had one question. It says that the average monthly cost is $1,832. Is that total?
That's total. That's correct.
Monthly, so that'd be like about $30, a little over $30.50, something like that per
day?
Per light. No, per light.
Yes.
Per month. Okay, thank you.
Any further questions? I have a motion by Trustee Joseph, supported by Trustee Anderson, to approve item 10F. Clerk Berry?
Trustee Joseph. Aye. Trustee Anderson.
Aye.
Trustee Hornberger. Aye. Trustee Vosberg.
Aye.
Treasurer Elliott.
Aye.
Supervisor Kersten.
Aye.
Clerk Berry, aye.
Item 11, addendums. There are none.
Thank you.
Thanks, Karen. Sorry about that. Addendums, there are none. Item 12, public comments. The mic is open. Again, there's a 3-minute time limit. If you would please state your name for the record, just so we can keep track, not required.
Joe Kadich, I live at Sutton. I'm here with a follow-up. Last meeting, I brought up the fact that you've collected in the Water and Sewer Department about $12 million for depreciation and replacement. None of that money is spent on depreciation, but there's nothing that showed up that the enterprise fund is increased. Now, if I'm not mistaken, there's a Bolt amendment that's attached to the Headley amendment that says that monies collected in the Water and Sewer Department, as well as the monies collected in the Police Department, can only be spent in that department. I don't see that happening here. It came back to bite me this last weekend. In August of '23, when we had the floods, the failure of the pump stations on Jefferson failed, and my basement flooded, along with others. It cost me $35,000. Nothing was done about that sewer line. Nothing was done about the pumps. Now, here we are almost 2 years later. Sunday morning, I wake up, and I've got no water. There's nothing on the website saying the water main broke or anything. I went outside and I saw them working a couple houses down from me, about 4 hours, turned it on. They said nothing about any follow-up as to whether we should boil water or what should happen. Nobody knew anything till after it happened as to what was going on, and still nobody knew what to do afterward. The next day, I'm taking a shower, and halfway through my shower, all of a sudden, I got black, inky water coming through. Sure as hell didn't come from my house. Something needs to be done. Find out where this money went to begin with. Start making amends to it, repairing some of these sewers and water. And also, when you have to service these things, let the people know what's going on. No, nobody tests the water afterwards. They just assume because they do it under a certain pressure that you're not getting anything back in the water that's in the system and coming back to you later. You have no idea what's going on. It's bad enough we have to put up with this stuff, but to let the people in the dark and basically subject them to possible harm because you don't do any testing or follow-up on it, it's irresponsible. Thank you.
John Speaker, Chesterfield Township. I want to thank Ms. Garby for taking a concern of mine that I had over a year ago in regards to the lighting on Gratiot from 23 Mile Road all the way up to between 25 and 26 Mile Road being a grave concern for the residents on the north end as far as insufficient lighting. I mentioned my concern to her. She obviously acted upon it, took the initiative to go out there, and she got it done. So I want to thank her for that. In regards to what was said about the air quality, again, I never think it's hyperbole when there's a concern of carcinogens or formaldehyde in the air. So I want to thank Josh for acting upon it. My question, though, that I have is when the air quality was tested inside the building, one of the questions that I had is, was it tested as soon as they went in, or were there any open doors to where it was able, any of the air was able to vent out? So that was one of the questions that I had, is how was it tested? And my other, I'd like to ask the board members on how you're enjoying your 10 to 20% raises that you gave yourself last year. So, and as far as Trustee Vosberg, I'm glad to see the participation in here tonight and asking questions. I attended a planning meeting the other night. I didn't see any of that from you, and I didn't see any direction coming from you to the planning board, which is, I think it's very important Mr. Supervisor, when we appoint people to these commissions, I know they get a $150 stipend, but I think it's very important that there's some knowledge and some background, because our commissions need somebody that can lead and to guide them in the proper way. So, and I'm glad that they got the sound system. It appears to be fixed tonight to where you can hear somewhat compared to what you could hear the other night. The residents, as far as, you know, I'm not happy with this building. This $2.8 million of ARPA money that was spent for this community center. My recommendation is, if you want to see a real community center, you go to Sterling Heights. Not only do they have a community center, they also have a senior center there. So that would be the starting point that I would recommend for this board. Thank you.
Any more public comments? Any further public comments? Mic is open. Bring it back up to the board. Item 13, board comments. Let's start with you, Trustee Hornberg. Good. Trustee Vosberg?
Thank you, Mr. Supervisor. I did speak at the Planning Commission meeting, and in fact received a note after the next day from someone on the commission who's thanked me for the items that I brought up, because they were of use to them. So I'm not sure what the person under public speaking, under the public comments, was talking about. Thank you.
Trustee Anderson?
Thank you. A couple things here real quick. First thing, the street Mr. Kadich is referring to has just recently been recapped, or beautiful shape by the county here, I think within the last year or so. And I know it was necessary to tear up the one lane to get at the problem. I just hope it's on the agenda of the township to repair that when the weather gets better, back to the pristine shape it was in, instead of like many of the roads in this township that look like downtown Baghdad. A shout out to Miss O'Hearn, one of our outstanding social studies teachers from Anchor Bay. It's good seeing you, Denise. If you're grading us tonight, please be generous. Good seeing you here. I know there's some inclement weather coming up later in the week, so everyone be careful. And finally, I know Mr. Joseph, I'm going to yield the remainder of my time to Dave. He has some comments about a very important February 28th event. Thank you.
All yours. Trustee Joseph.
Yeah, just to address a couple of the comments. Mr. Kadich, I do share your concerns about the depreciation money that's collected. We do have a sizable amount that goes to depreciation, and we don't seem to have, capital improvements that keep pace with those, and I'm not sure why. It's an ongoing concern, and I, hope we get to the bottom of that. I think you do have valid points in terms of notification. I think anytime we have a water main break that affects in a neighborhood, we should maybe get that on our website and notify people of just inherent risks associated with boil water and so forth. I'm not sure what happened there, but I will follow up. And the comments about in the beginning of the meeting, there were questions about SCADA and that it was some kind of a, I don't know, I forgot what the characterization of, but it was under that individual's fiscal hawk conservative. It was an unnecessary expenditure that exceeded. If you understood what the SCADA system does, the supervisory control and data acquisition system, SCADA, it allows Mitch and the water department team to analyze breaks, pressures in all of our lines. They are able to access that remotely. It's a very, very complicated system with a lot of data, and it's available to our professionals and experts on a moment's notice. So it is a invaluable service, and the cost is commensurate with the system size. So the bigger the system, the more that you will pay. The concern about my use of the word hyperbole, I know that the commenter is not real strong when it comes to understanding big words, and a hyperbole is an exaggerated claim that is not meant to take literally. And you can speak about formaldehyde and concerns of environmental. That's not an argument that you will have with me. It is a paramount concern of mine. But in the way that the concern was brought forward, it was brought forward during a debate and a discussion about the clerk's agenda item, which required hundreds of thousands of dollars in equipment and work hours to manage a record system. And I don't want to mix concerns about employee health in a flippant way. And I thought that they came out flippant. I thought that they were picked up by our F&O department, who said, wait a minute, if we have employees that are passing out, we should probably get the air quality checked. And so I think that there was a better way to bring that concern forward, and that was my comment. It wasn't in the concerns about health care. Lastly, well, two quick things. Trustee Vosberg, when you said you weren't sure why the comments, I am, and they are just vitriol. The proper explanation of the vitriol would probably have to do with the November election results, and since he can't get up and complain about being beat again, like a rented mule, I think is the old expression goes, he takes shots at board members on a rotating basis. The real community, Sterling Heights, that has a community center and a senior center, they also have real taxes. They have dedicated tax systems that fund those. And so if that is the direction that the fiscal hawk conservative wants to go, make an honest assessment of that. I'll just close a update on Badge 55. As I reported some meetings ago, he was at St. Jude's for a very extensive 6-week daily, 5 days a week radiation treatment. I'm grateful to his mother and father. They text me every morning a picture with a countdown of 28 days and 27 treatments and 26, and today I'll share it with anybody who would like to see it. I got a video this morning. They have a tradition at St. Jude's on your last day of treatment. He was greeted in a hallway by all of the attending nurses and doctors and individuals there providing his care, and they were celebrating him, and he rings the bell signifying his last day of treatment. He will get home in time before the weather hits us tomorrow. He has a very early flight, and I'm looking forward to seeing my friend, but his treatment went exceptionally well for those who are concerned about Badge 55. Just the last thing that I wanted to mention during my comments, department reports, the Friends of Chesterfield Police Bowling event is the annual event that raises the most amount of money for the organization, and it funds the costs associated with our canine unit, Hemi and Viper, along with a number of other things. The event is scheduled for February 28th. It will take place at Premier Lanes. I know several board members typically sponsor lanes, and if you're still interested and you've sponsored in the past, please contact Kathy McNair to re-sign up for your lane sponsor. They'll use the banner from last year if you were a continuing member. The cost of the entry is $25 for bowlers, $10 for non-bowlers. There is pizza, pop, 9-pin no-tap, and the organization does a phenomenal job with basket raffles and 50-50. Again, February 28th at Premier Lanes, and you can look to the Friends of Chesterfield Police Facebook page for more details about ticket purchase. Thank you, Mr. Supervisor.
Thank you. 3.36, extra time.
Thank you. Which was,
I didn't. Treasurer Elliott.
Thank you, Mr. Supervisor. I had to take a minute and look up the reports, previous reports, to just kind of show like how the difference between the beginning of the year when we end the tax collection cycle, which is coming up here this week, so a couple more days. Valentine's Day is always an exciting day in Treasurer's Department because that's the last day to pay your taxes before that goes to penalty. And then at the end of the month, that's going to be the last day you can pay your taxes here at the township. So when we collect your taxes, all of that money comes in during the 3-month period for the winter tax cycle. And that is when public safety gets the largest portion of theirs. They get all of their money in the winter, and then that gets spent down. So if you look at previous treasurer's reports, you'll see that at the end of March 31 of 2024, there was about $13 million in the public safety fund. And then at the end of the year, there's only $4 million left, and that gets spent pretty quick at the end of the year. But then we move the tax money in January, and then they have $16 million, and then they spend throughout the year in order to function. And that's how it works when the general fund will get their tax revenue or their state shared revenue, and those will go in and we spend it. At the end of the year, that's the lowest balance. So when there's a math being done here, and I think it's kind of a gotcha math. And when that gotcha math is going on, what is not being understood is that, as I explained earlier, the amounts that are in those accounts fluctuate over the year. And so that is, people say, well, what does that mean? And if you look at this, you'll see that Capital Projects Fund was a new fund that we have earned $500,000 on. And then you'll see that we've actually increased the amount in our general fund investments. And that has increased over the last couple of years. And that has been due to this board being very fiscally conservative, believe it or not, and has done a good job. The other thing that I wanted to point out is the millage rates. If you ever have a question, or if you're running for office, or especially if you're running for the treasurer's office, the millage rates are available at michigan.gov. And the Sterling Heights average millage rates, depending on the district, are between 38 and 42 mills. And the Chesterfield Township millage rates are between, depending on the school district you're in, between 27 and 29 mills, as Trustee Joseph has also pointed out. Thank you.
I'll give you extra time if you need.
I think that speaks for itself when you're talking about comparing cities to townships. It's a very big difference. So, thank you.
Thank you. Clerk Bear.
Thank you, Mr. Supervisor. So a couple of things would like to address. First, FOIA. A lot of folks put in FOIA requests for information. I'd just like to remind the public as well as our board members that a Freedom of Information Act request is not actually a request for information, it's a request for a record. And oftentimes people get frustrated when they put in a request and it's they're usually very broad. I would like any and all correspondence regarding a particular subject. I would like any and all emails, and it'll go on and on and on. And the problem is that when that is submitted to us, our FOIA coordinator and our records coordinator work together on our FOIAs because, quite frankly, we get so many, and it's not just us, it's all municipals. We get so many FOIA requests now that it actually takes the equivalent of one full-time employee to actually handle them all, so they split those duties. And so if it's not specific, if you're not asking for a specific record, we may call you and ask for some more specifics. What specific records are you looking for? We'd be happy to pull them for you, but sometimes it's just way too broad. I'd like to thank our FOIA coordinator, Michelle Niza, and Erica Savinsky, our records coordinator. They don't actually have to do that. They could just send you a denial saying, nope, we don't have that record. But they don't. They always go the extra mile. They'll call the requester and try to figure out what is it exactly that you need and help them modify their request so that we can get them the record that they're asking for. So even though it's a little bit of a misnomer, it says Freedom of Information Act, you're actually asking for a record. What we are working on this year and hope to have prepared to launch at the beginning of next year is a highly improved FOIA option where we will have a list of all records available, and it'll be a drop-down menu where you'll just be able to put in an electronic request and select which records, so that we don't have that issue and you don't have to figure out filling out that form and everything like that. So we hope to launch that at the beginning of next year. We're going to be working on it this year. On a personal note, many of you know I will not be here for the next 2 board meetings. I have a medical leave, so going to take care of a medical issue that I was putting off all of last year because of the election. So I will not be here for the next 2 board meetings. You will see that the board and the board members know that they will appoint a record keeper or a secretary for those meetings, and that board member will take the minutes and they will be forwarded to the clerk's office and they will be available as they typically are. Thank you, Mr. Supervisor.
Thank you. I want to thank, first of all, Josh and Facilities and Karen and the staff to make this accommodation for the board meetings. I think it's gone well. Obviously, the planning issue, meeting that we had here, we've updated it since then. We'll continue to do so. I sent the board back in January the notice from Great Lakes Water Authority about the proposed rate increases for both water and sewer. We're going to attach that to the upcoming water bills that are going out, again, just so the public and the residents and the businesses have an understanding of where that is coming through and what their proposed increases are, and then how they will impact our community and the individual ratepayers. So I also want to thank the board and Adam from Midwest. Adam is, it's just a great asset for us. It's easy to get a hold of him. When we have legislative issues that we want clarity on, he's a phone call away, and just having him available to make connections and open doors is made our job a lot easier. And I hope the board appreciates him coming in, and will continue to do that. We've had meetings this week, obviously, with the county and PA 51. I don't proclaim to be an expert in that area, and you've seen it in the news. It needs to be fixed. We have a problem getting the county to get proper funding into this township and fix the roads that Trustee Anderson pointed out. Some of them look like Baghdad. We met, Trustee Vosberg and I went to a meeting with the newly formed committee, and they have absolutely 0 projects in Chesterfield Township, whether it be rehabilitation or reconstruction. And the biggest one that they have, which is part of a federal program, is the Jefferson Reconstruction Program from M59 all the way into New Baltimore, which we've already addressed. Which leads into one of the focus areas that one of the residents speaks about, is reconstruction of outdated, depreciated water and sewer infrastructure. Yes, we have a large problem in that area, and we are trying everything we can to address it and prioritize each one of those network pipes throughout the township. Because of the proposed Jefferson reconstruction, we are focusing in that area, and in our capital plan and budget approved this year, there is $6 million in projects that focus in that area. Again, directly to one of the residents' comments, I've tried to engage, I've tried to have conversations. Again, I'm not an expert on depreciation, I don't pretend to be, but the individuals that are at the back of this room, and you can have open conversations with them at any time. They're available to you to discuss and have an understanding, or at least try to understand how it's applied here in Chesterfield. I will tell you, this township does not have enough money to fix the depreciated pipe or the outdated pipe in both water and sewer that are in this township. But we are trying to come up with a plan, we are working on a plan, moving forward to prioritize those areas, those concerns, and address them with the capital plan. And you'll see that, you do see that in this year's budget. There are two, as I mentioned, two projects, $6 million that we're focusing on, and we'll continue to do that. And a lot of that has to do with the development of what the board has approved with our mapping and GIS system, where I want the residents to be able to understand exactly what's going on in their community with the said services, water, sewer, property boundaries, hydrant sizes, location, all of that we are building again and working towards. I want to point out very clearly that the old youth center at the end of Sugar Bush is a secure building. It is monitored. It is secured. The access is very limited. There's few people that go in there, township employees, and we'll continue to maintain that. We're in the final phase. We met with our HRC water study, and again, we were waiting for the legislation that was mentioned earlier tonight with Adam's presentation that did fail. Just so you know, there is an attempt from two other outside counties trying to resurrect that in some fashion and at least get it back on the legislative state level. We're going to move forward with it. We plan to move forward with a presentation from HRC in May, and that's about all I have. With that being said, I will make a motion to adjourn, supported by Trustee Anderson. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Meeting is adjourned, 8:56.